Welcome to Keep the Game Beautiful podcast. Each week, I highlight incredible people who are doing amazing things in soccer, the beautiful game. I'm Anna Turi, your host. Thank you for listening. Today I talked to Colton Bryant. After talking to Colton for only 5 minutes, I was able to tell how uplifting and positive he is. He does truly care about his players and just wants them to stay happy and involved in the game. This past weekend, I got to go to a live game myself, which was really exciting. I went with the referee crew, and afterwards it was great talking to the center ref and really learning a lot because refereeing is another passion of mine. It's also obviously very exciting to see the NWSL and any other local teams, or honestly, any game I can watch is amazing. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Today's guest is Colton Bryant. He played collegiately at Martin Methodist College. He then became a student assistant coach at Martin Methodist College. He has coached at multiple levels at many different places. Now he coaches at Columbia State Community College. So Colton, would you like to take a second and tell us a bit more about yourself?
Oh, I hate talking about myself. No, I'm a young coach. I'm only 25 years old. I actually, when I first got into coaching, I never thought I was going to be a coach, to be honest with you. I didn't like kids at the time. I was young. But then my coach at Martin kind of pushed me into it. And then, I had a few ACL tears. So it ended up just being how I had to move forward if I wanted to stay in the game. And I'm just one of them that I think I've gotten lucky in every stage. I don't think I've done anything spectacular per se. I think it's always been a matter of just trying to do my best and ending up in good places at right times. And so, I've had opportunities in Argentina, Mexico. I ran tournaments all around the country, including the biggest youth international tournament in the country, Copa Rayados, Texas. So, but no, I moved here. I was in South Florida coaching at a DA, and then my mother had gotten sick, so I decided to move back and be closer. And thankfully, she's good now. But now I'm just I'm here, and it's been fun. It's been a ride. I never thought I would start a program, and I never realized how difficult that was going to be. But it's been a blast. I've learned a lot, and moving forward, I'm hoping we can really shock a lot of people in this 2020 season.
So on this podcast, I always start with the same 3 questions. So first, what does the beautiful game mean to you?
Yeah, I could never answer that and keep you under an hour properly. It just means everything. It's been it's just been my whole life ever since I could remember.
What are actions or things you do to keep the game beautiful?
I think that the approach we like to take is a lot different than a lot of people in terms of, I think that there's a lot of talent, and I know we all know that you can do practices to grow talent, but I think what I try and do is we try and always make everything go beyond the field, meaning like my girls they know that I'm more likely to stop a practice if we don't say something good to each other than I am if we mess up. It's okay to mess up, and there's going to be times I'm going to have to, I don't want to say correct, but offer a different perspective. But that's, I think the X's and O's for me are 1/3 or 1/4 really of the job. I think the other bit is about building people and building character. And I think that what at least what I'm finding is that the players get a lot better after they learn who they are themselves and how to be a good teammate. And I just think that if I was to focus just on the player development rather than the person, I think that not only would we not develop as much, I just don't think that they would ever reach the potential that they actually have. We just try and keep that intrinsic motivation in them.
How do you encourage others to keep the game beautiful?
I've struggled with this question a lot, if you want me to be honest. I think that we're in a society now that when we all talk, I think people get a sense of being spoken at rather than spoken to. So I just try and, be the best I can be and hope that people can catch me in, you know, for lack of better terms, acts of excellence. I just hope that I don't try and push a certain way on people. I just try and live a certain way, and hopefully, you know, it can catch someone's eye and inspire them to be better.
So first off, I'd like to talk for a little bit about the recent tournament you coached in, the Southeast Soccer Academy tournament. So I know this is one of the major showcase events to come back, or one of the first ones. So could you talk about what it was like coaching for the first time in a while?
Oh, it was a blast. I'm an energy bunny, and I think that you know, the quarantine, I get it. I won't make any statements on any of all of that extra stuff. I just think that me being inside for too long was not fun. And I think that it was a difficult time for me specifically, because when I get the things I do when I get bored got boring, and all I did was end up working more. And so that showcase was a blast. I think that we took every precaution to make sure the athletes, the coaches, the parents, everyone was safe. We did all the temperature checks needed, but finally, once we got through the hard part, which was getting all of that in line, just being on the field was it was a blast, to be honest with you. I enjoyed it. I think the players got to enjoy it. I got to meet a lot of people. I got to speak to a lot of new coaches, got to watch a lot of new coaches. So, no, I think it was great. And we've got another big event on the way, hopefully.
What were you able to learn about as a coach?
So I think as a coach, we tend to, when you go into all the coaching education and stuff, I think that all that is, yeah, it's important. But I think what we need to learn is the people we're working with. And so I got to learn about, you know, 15 new players. I got to learn what kind of makes them tick, what kind of doesn't make them tick. I got to learn how to navigate, you know, when you're at a showcase, it's really hard for the players and the coaches, because especially for me, I struggle at camps and showcases because I'm a very personal coach, which means that I like to get to know people. And my style is through almost being a friend to all my players. And so it was a matter, you know, the more camps and the more showcases I do, I just think I'm learning how to build that connection, I guess, quicker. And honestly, I think we did a good job at it, to be honest with you. I think our players really, really bought in, and you could tell from day 1 to day 3, there was an entirely different photo. And I don't think that had anything to do with me, outside of just getting them to kind of believe in themselves and just getting them to believe in a new perspective, not to take away their old ways, but to give them new ideas. And then, you know, hopefully when we put all of that together, we performed, and we did really well. I just think we were a bit unfit.
What do you think the players walked away with?
I think they walked away with a much wider perspective of the recruiting process, because, you know, I'm at a JUCO school, started the program 2 years ago, and I think that oftentimes players, they either don't have the right guidance or they have the wrong perception, and that's not their fault. It's a matter of, you know, there's not many people out there that help in the recruiting process. It's one of them. They tell you do really, really good and you'll get recruited. And if you work hard, you'll get recruited. And the reality of it is, yes, that's possible, but you could be one of the best players ever and still not get seen. And so it's a matter of, you know, and also we all have target schools we want to go to. It's not about turning down the schools you don't want. It's about really evaluating all your options, because every opportunity, big or small, is in fact an opportunity. And, you know, only 1 to 3% of athletes actually get those. So I think when they left here, they kind of left with a new perspective, because look, I obviously would have loved to recruit a lot of the players on my team. And I've spoke to them since. It's just a matter of, I don't necessarily, when we want players, it's not about just trying to get them here. If we're not the right fit for them for whatever reasons, then that's what we want to, we're okay with that. And I'm okay with helping them through their process. And I'm very good about staying in contact, even if they've told me, Coach, there's no chance I can come to your program, but could you help me here? Well, I'm going to help, because I think all of us coaches, at the end of the day, while we're competitive, I think the most important piece is that the athletes go where they are happy at.
So you had talked about being a very personal coach. How do you build relationships in a few days with brand new players who haven't played in a few months?
I have no clue. I just kind of when you meet them, I am me, and I kind of say who I am, and I don't know. From there, it just comes with situations and how we handle the situations in terms of, when you're first meeting someone, if you make a joke, how do they react? Are they a more serious player? Are they not a serious player? And it's about, when you maybe give a coaching point, you can tell through body language. I could never explain how I do a lot of the things I do, because I go by feel. I go by reading people and hoping I'm reading them right. I am not perfect by any means, but what I am is transparent, and I think I'm very authentic in that if I say something wrong, I have no issue with saying sorry. But I think that, I don't know. I honestly, when we meet them, it's just a matter of how they react in every situation, and I kind of just wing it. I do it with my team meetings too. I know Klopp said it a while back, but it's so true. I actually only know the very first thing that I have to talk about. From there, I have no clue what I'm going to say next. I have no idea where the conversation's going to take our team meetings. I have an outline, but sometimes I never even follow those. I just kind of go with what the players are asking and stuff like that. So in terms of building that personal connection, it was just, I needed them to know I was there for them. And the way to show that was to do my best at every practice and every question they asked.
Do you see leaders emerge in these settings in only a few short days? Normally, I know it can take players a while to show this type of leadership.
Yeah, no, I could tell who our leaders were going to be before I got to the showcase, just in terms of how they were responding in the group chat, how quickly they responded or not quickly they responded, how they asked questions in the group chat prior to the showcase. And then I had a very good idea of who the leaders would be. And I'm very happy to say that it was very accurate. I think that I had a very good idea of who was going to be what, and it turned out true. That doesn't mean that the ones that I didn't think were going to be leaders didn't start to lead through trainings. It's just a matter of, girls are inherently shy versus boys are not most of the time. So with girls, it's a matter of, making sure that they're comfortable. And so like day 1 and day 3, most of the reason that it was entirely different was because they were a lot more comfortable on day 3. And what I find is I don't raise my voice ever, unless I'm excited and I'm yelling something good, but I will never get upset and raise my voice or say anything like that. And I think that unfortunately a lot of high school coaches do approach things that way. And I think it kind of shocked them that I wasn't similar to that.
So going off of leadership a little bit, do you try and teach leadership, or do you let players learn it themselves almost?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I'd say both. It's a matter of, I just think that there's a way of right and wrong. And I think that there is you treat your teammates really good. You treat our motto is always make your teammate look better. And I just think that if you start to learn that you don't even have to call yourself a leader, because there are people like, for me, I think genuinely I'm a servant leader, meaning I don't know how to do anything outside of I'll do it and prove it. And so I think that, I could never talk leadership into someone, because it's just a way that I kind of work, versus like some players, they're like, we had 3 captains that were so different. One that would always talk, and she'll be the one to rip into the players when they need to. And that's great. That's needed. But we have one that never said a word, but when she finally did, everyone listened. Totally different scenario, totally different type of leadership style. And then we have another one that if I said, hey, girls, can we go do this? She already had the bags. And that's a whole different type of leadership. And I just think that, through everyone's individual personalities, we all have traits that bring out us, because that's who we are. And it's about finding those traits and putting the players in positions and making them feel comfortable with one another to let those traits really flourish. And I think that's how you build leadership. I don't think leadership itself can be encompassed in a certain definition. I just think that it's about bringing out the best of who they already are. We always have questions in our head about oh, should I be doing this? And it's, I want the players to instantly be themselves. And I think that if we can help them see new perspectives and help them feel comfortable, that leadership is inherently within all of us. And I just think it's a matter of how we can bring it out. And every player is different, so there's no way to approach that.
So what advice would you give to any coaches getting ready to come back to the game?
Enjoy it. Like, I think that if any college coaches specifically, I think that if they're coming back and not enjoying it, they're crazy. Because I think we're just in a situation right now where we should be grateful to have, jobs, grateful to have positions. That doesn't mean we're not stressed out because of everything going on. That's 100% the case. But I would say that when we get back to the trainings, I think it can be a way forward for soccer in America, because I think coaches should be at least coming back with a whole new perspective. Before the virus, you have the U.S. the way it's been forever. After the virus, you have a new perspective in terms of like how much the game actually means to us and how scary it is that, some coaches don't have jobs anymore because their school shut down. And I just think that it should give us all a new perspective, players included, that, the game is a lot more than the game. And, so I'd say my advice coming back is just to enjoy it, be yourselves, and don't run the players straight away. If you run them straight away and you haven't kept communication and made sure that they were doing certain levels of fitness during this time off, then you're not going to have players because they're going to be hurt. And if you're a youth coach, you better not be running them to begin with. It doesn't make sense.
So what were some of your players' biggest challenges, and how did you support them?
So every player's got a different challenge, and they will approach that different challenge differently, if that makes sense. I know I'm giving you these open answers, but it's the only real way. The only thing I could do is, when I like I said, I go off feel. So when I had, my emotional moments, I made sure I text the girls in the group chat, because I think it's important to show vulnerability. I think that if I'm always given the perception that I'm a Superman and I can help if I can help everyone's problems, I think it kind of, the relationship becomes I'm a crutch rather than a mentor or a helper. And I think that the only way that I can sort of get that perception different is if they see that, we struggle too. And so I would just say my communication was just, I'm here if you need me. And, there was multiple scenarios, not just the virus that popped up. And so, those are all different, and every player perceives things differently, and every player grew up in a different background. And lots of times it's hard to speak up and ask questions, especially if you're worried about responses. And I think that what I'm very good about is I'm always open. I'm always honest. That doesn't mean the girls will like my answers. But it means that they know I'm being honest. There's no hidden agenda. So I think that, I didn't have to work too hard on the communication process, because believe me, during the recruiting process, they've heard plenty of me, and they know exactly how I am before they even get to the school. And so I think that, we're blessed with a very good group that was there to support one another. They actually, I'm going to be honest, I don't think they needed me. I asked if they did, and no one actually had any issues. It was kind of cool. It was a cool period. It was one of them where even our incoming freshmen were in the group chats and stuff. And it's just, I think that we're good about building the culture before they're even on campus.
So just a little bit ago, you had talked a bit about injuries and being mindful. So how can players and coaches be mindful of overuse injuries or just exhaustion?
So that depends, and it depends on the level. So, for example, a college coach may run a player straight away, and it should be, honestly, in terms of preseason, it should be kind of expected. Like, if a college player is coming back unfit, that's their problem. That was their fault. If you want to be an elite athlete, I shouldn't have to hold your hand, and no coach should. So I would say that, the big piece will be balancing the fitness and the ball work, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know. It's all so different. I would just say that injury-wise, you've got to put in the work on your own. If you're only going to practice and doing the work, you'll never make it where you want to go. And that's the reality of it. If I only worked during my office hours, I would never get recruits, because recruits are in school during my office hours. You've got to work beyond what you're doing. And that's the coaches, that's players alike. Players, I cannot stand everyone telling me what they want and then their actions don't match it. That really annoys me, probably more than anything, because I'm someone that I have big dreams, I have big ambitions, and I will go for them. And I expect that if our players say, hey, I want to do this, then I'm going to say, good, let's do it. But if they're not doing their part, they're going to hear that from me. So in terms of injury and how to stop it, just if you're doing the right things, and in terms of keeping yourself fit, it shouldn't happen to begin with. And if you're young, the injuries are going to come from you tripping over a ladybug, not a overuse injury. At least it shouldn't be an overuse injury if you're too young.
So I want to talk a bit about your coaching journey now. You said you didn't know you'd be a coach. How did this happen?
Yeah, so I got hurt, and it was a rough time, and it was a matter of, well, what am I going to do now? And one day my coach was like, and I was broke, and my coach was like, hey, do you want to go work at day camp? I said, sure, why not? And then while working the day camp, I kind of enjoyed it. And then I kept doing those day camps. And then finally I decided, because I was really broke. I remember one day in college, I had $20 and I needed to pay rent. I needed food. I was just not in a good way. And I was trying to figure out how in the world I was going to survive. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to put together something, and I'm going to try and start training kids $50 a month for 4 practices a month. And that was like private training. And then it turned into, okay, well, let's do $50 a month academy style, and let's do 2 practices a week for $50 a month. And then it actually ended up going to 3 practices a week for $50 a month. And it was not it wasn't a club. It was a training service, I guess. And I started doing that. And that was like, I remember I went to every surrounding county, and I offered it to every surrounding county. And the one county that actually responded, I had no idea would respond. And I started with 2 kids. I drove an hour to, well, not really an hour, it was about 45 minutes to train 2 kids 3 times a week. And then over time, I started that maybe early in the year, would have been around August, September. By Christmas, I had 75 kids. And then by the end of Christmas, because when Christmas first hits, you start getting football players that, look, I live in SEC country. Football is king. And there's a lot of parents that won't let their kids play soccer because they want them to play football. And this was an experience they were able to have because it wasn't during their football season. And so we actually, like, the numbers went from 2 to 75 to a little over 100. And then, it was just sporadic. And then I started at being able to host camps. And I really like targeting areas that don't have a lot. So I think my last few camps have been $75 a player. And I go to the most impoverished areas that don't have a lot. And I used to, before I got into the college coaching stuff, and I've had to step back from it a lot, but I offered a free recruiting agency with it. So if you were good enough and I thought that I could help you, I was going to do it for free. All I ever asked was, I hope that I've done enough to earn, not to earn, that's not the right word. We ran off donations. So if I couldn't survive anymore on the recruiting side, then I didn't do it. I would just do the training. And that if they really appreciated the recruiting side and they felt like it was a big help, I mean, even $5 is $5. And what I started finding was people were willing to donate more than what they would have if I had put together like pricing packages that people sell now. And that was sort of how I started. And then from there, I just kind of literally, like I said, I get lucky. I will never forget, I was a freshman in college and I was a field marshal for a soccer tournament. And I ended up running that tournament company by my senior year. So I went for a weekend to make $300. And then I ended up the senior director of the biggest youth national tournament in the country. And it was just luck. It's nothing, I'm not special. It's nothing I did. Only thing I knew I did was I was the best field marshal out there. I made sure my scores were right every time. And I try to speak clearly on the microphone. It doesn't take much to do that. But apparently the head man said, oh, well, he's got his stuff together. And in the next year, I became I was a step higher. I got to make more than 300 on a weekend, and I had a bit more responsibility. And then, one thing led to another.
Because you went through a major injury, does this help you support other players with injuries?
100%, because I'm going to be honest, I was a prick. I was a very good player, and I didn't have the support as a teammate that I should have had. I was a very good player, but I could have been special. And it had nothing to do with my ability. When I got hurt, I realized I was always so upset, and I couldn't figure out why. And then what I realized was it was because I couldn't make an impact. My impact was my play. And now that I was hurt and I'm on the sideline, I no longer could do that. And that was very difficult. And I think that's when I realized that I needed to approach everything differently. I think that I was a bit arrogant. I think I was not a bit arrogant. I was very arrogant. I think that my injury changed my perspective of absolutely everything because, I lost my offer to the school I wanted to go to. There was a lot of things that just kind of unfolded. And I was committed to the University of Kentucky, and then they took my scholarship, and then I ended up getting an offer from Martin Methodist. Martin Methodist, when I first moved to Tennessee, was like 30 minutes down the road, really small city. I never in my life would have considered Martin Methodist. And then, it's just kind of crazy that Martin Methodist has given me, well, I don't want to say Martin Methodist has given me, my coach who was at Martin Methodist at the time kind of helped me find a new pathway. And since then, I've just kind of kept going. But yeah, so I think that my being hurt, and I think it just gave me the new perspective that I needed. And I don't just tell that to injured players. Everything that I've said, it applies to players not injured, because it took me being injured to become the best version of what I should have been before. And it shouldn't do that. You shouldn't need that. So we try and go over that before it even happens.
I know a while back you described your coaching style earlier as more of a personal coach. How did you settle on this as your technique?
What I learned was, when you're young, like you are and I am, everyone older than you likes to tell you how and what and why you should be doing things. And that's kind of how you shape your perspective. And what I learned was I don't agree with 90% of the things that they say. And sometimes it's not even that I don't agree. It's that my personality traits, I just would struggle. Like I was trying to do things the way that they were supposed to be done. And I was finding that it was difficult. And so then what I figured out was I just needed to listen to everyone, take people's advice, but not try and mimic it and try and mold it to, okay, this is good piece, but I didn't really like what they said there. That doesn't mean that I have to do what they said there. It just means that I can throw that piece out. And then through listening to a lot of people over time, I came to the conclusion that all I had to do was be myself. And that was pretty cool, because now for me, I live with my heart on my sleeve. My players they'll know when I'm about to start balling. I don't mind crying in front of anyone. I think that is a strength. I think that is a thing that they know that I care. And so for me, I don't know, the personal style, I don't know that I approach it that way, or that it's just how I am.
Who are some of your mentors while coaching, and how did they really help you?
Ooh. Number one would have to be my mom, because obviously she's awesome. But then I would say in the coaching world, the world it's going to be so cliche, but the world is the mentor. When I go recruiting, I see things coaches do that I really don't like, and I see things coaches do that I really like. And it's just like my approach of the style is just you watch people and you try and see, oh, well, I wonder why they do this. And then the more you watch, the more you can observe, and you see, I don't know, how things go. And then from there, I've learned a lot from the first coach I had. Was great. He a lot of people struggle with him because he can be very difficult, but I think he was very good at look, he would tear us apart, but he knew how to put us back together. Versus I've had another coach in my life that I learned so much from him on how not to be. And I won't say a name. I couldn't stand him. I don't like him to this day. And I won't say his name because it's not right, but he taught me more than anything. He taught me how not to speak to players, how not to approach a session, how not to do a lot of things. And, that was very helpful for me, to be completely honest with you. Because there were times when I was even younger, like I'm a young coach now, but there was times when I was even younger that I would have to stop and go, oh, I'm being a little bit like this guy. And that is the instant trigger of me to go, no, I won't be like this. So, I would say probably the person that had the most influence on my coaching journey is the person I disliked the most.
So you talked about observing and learning, basically. So I'll share a little example. When I referee, I really like to take the touchline with the coaches so I can learn about and hear different coaching styles. So how can you help players take this perspective and use it?
That's a hard one because we're all inherently so different. Like I am so type CD, whatever you want to call it. I'm not type A. And what I learned when I got into the coaches, with the coaching environment, and especially with the women's game, is that a lot of my players are type A. And I had to figure out how in the world are we going to be able to mesh. And so I guess, like the observing piece is we all have to understand that we're not perfect. And we all have to understand that we can be better. Even if we're one of the best in the country, you can still be better. If you're telling yourself you can't be better, you're lying. And if you tell yourself you can't be better, then you've officially stopped your growth. And I just feel that if you really care about your growth, then watch people, because it doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It doesn't mean you have to do what they do. It just means that you're figuring out what you don't want to do or you do want to do. And I just think that if players would take a moment and listen to one another, they would have a lot more answers to their questions than even a coach could give them.
So I want to take a little bit and now talk about your Chargers. So can you start by telling me a bit about your season at Columbia State last year?
Oh, yeah. So we started the program in 2018, and it was hard. It was very hard. We didn't have any time to recruit. I had from the day I accepted the job, well, they called and said, do you still want it? Because I put together the budget for it and everything, to preseason. We had 3 months. So I didn't have a player. I didn't have an office with a desk. I didn't have a schedule. I didn't have anything. And, we held tryouts and we prayed. And it's another one of them things, completely honest in saying, I got really lucky with some of the players we got. Very lucky with some of the players we got. We were not expected to win a game in our first season. We won our very first game 5-0. And we won our next game. It was 1 or 2-0. I want to say 1-0. Yeah, we won the next game 1-0, and we ended up going 4-4 on the season. And that's not a normal college schedule. That just goes to show you how late it was and how we couldn't even get teams on our schedule. And then you recruit and you recruit, and then you fast forward to this year. And this year was awesome. We started out pretty rough. I think we were 3-4 when the turnaround actually happened. We started the season 2-0, and we dominated. Like, we had a game where we had 40 shots and the other team didn't have one, and that was great. But then we had games that, we were doing very well, and just not, things were slipping, and from on the player side and the coach's side. And I think what was cool about what turned our season around was one of our players called me out and was like, Coach, you're all about positivity. I don't believe you've been very positive. And I had to really take a step back and reflect on that. But that's what's cool about here is I don't take that in a bad way. This coaching staff is a part of the team. This is not a dictatorship. So if I'm allowed to give you advice or criticism, then why can't you give me criticism? So when she said that, it kind of really opened my eyes. And, after that fourth game we lost to put us at 3-4, I kind of, we had a heart-to-heart at the end of the game. And we made a choice together that we were going to change things. And I think I have the stats somewhere, but I know that we had, it was like 8 goals for us, or no, it was like 10 goals for us and like 14 against us in the first, what would that be, 7 games. And then in the next 8 games, we had 20 goals scored and 4 against us. So it was a massive change. And, you know, I don't want to say it was any change in, look, our sessions are very similar. Like, I don't do a lot of different things every day. So the sessions are very similar. I just think what we were getting out of them was a lot more. And I think that it took that span of the 4 games to really open all of our eyes. And I think that after that, we kind of clicked. We went to oddly enough, a road trip, and it was like a tournament. So we played back to back, and we just tried to really utilize the hotel time. I think that is one of the most underestimated development tools in college soccer is your hotel time, how you room your players, why you room them, when you have team talks, when you don't, when you are hard on them about being in bed in time, and when you let them have fun. I think that is massive in your team development. And we had something clicked. We started dominating teams. It was honestly really cool to go through. And then, you know, your second year, you win a conference championship, and you don't even have 2 classes you've recruited in your school yet. It's just one recruiting class in a class that you had tryouts. And we won the conference. We fell 1 game short of nationals. And I just think that if we get to have a season this year, we're going to shock a lot of people, because we have I truly think we have a special group. And while people are learning about Columbia State, we want to make sure the whole country knows about us.
So what were some of the biggest challenges in building a new program from scratch?
Finding myself easily, finding how I was going to do it. So what's cool about being a player and being a student assistant and all of those little things is that you've gotten to watch people and you've gotten to see what they did. But what's hard about it is it's like, you know, it's practice going straight into a game, right? So you can practice at practice and you're a certain way. And when you get into the game, you know, it's showtime. And you have to apply all the things. It's like homework. You're doing your math, and then you've got a test, and you better do well. And so it was cool for me because I had to find myself. I've gotten to watch so many coaches operate in so many different ways. And it was like, Colton, how are you going to do it? And, you know, I wanted to build culture first. So the number one thing we look for when we recruit is a good person. Like, I can find 1,000 unreal players like that. That's just, it's easy. You got to go on YouTube and type 2021 class and you'll find loads of them. But that doesn't mean they're going to be a good person, and they can be an all-star on the field and really hurt your team. I mean, look at Real Madrid. They have an unreal team and they still struggle. That's because they don't have that, at least I can't say they don't have it, but at least from my perception, they don't have that character value stuff. And I feel that that's our premium. And like our best player, she's expected to go Power 5 in 2021. And our best player, our first conversation, and she started laughing when I did it. But first time I spoke to her, the first thing I said was, look, I don't care if you're a D1 transfer. I don't care if you are an ECNL national champion. You're not going to join this program if you're not a good person. And that was literally the very first sentence we had. Now, I had texted her prior, but this is the first voice conversation she had with me. And she goes, yeah, no, I get it. And, you know, from there, that's just how we've always worked. And I'm an ambitious person. And I think that what's cool about our program was it was a blank canvas. So if someone told me, oh, you can never build a national championship winning team, I can tell them why not. And, you know, every recruit we speak to, they look at me crazy when I'm as ambitious as I am, but I just look at them and say, well, is it wrong of me to want a player like you to reach those ambitions? And that's sort of what has built what we have now. And I think I'm dead serious in saying I just feel that this year is going to be an entirely different thing. But no, culture was it. Culture is everything. And it's how we recruit. It's how we function. It is literally 99% of my job is making sure we maintain our culture. The X's and O's, they come from culture, not before, always after. You will never get X's and O's done without your players respecting you and respecting the program for what it is.
So you're one of the best coaches I've seen promoting culture and opportunities for your players. So how did you get so passionate about this part of the job?
When I was a player, I look, I didn't have any money. I came from nothing in terms of, financial stuff. I couldn't afford club. I was kicked out of the rec league because so I've been this. It's so funny. I've been this size since I was like 8. I was massive as a young kid, and I think I was 8 years old playing U12, and I scored 20 goals in one game. And parents were screaming that I was too old to be on the field, and I was well younger than everyone on the field until my mom freaked out and she brought my birth certificate to a game one time. And long story short, the local club was like, hey, we're going to scholarship him in so he'll stop pissing off all the rec parents. So that's what they did. And that was my first club team I got to play for. And then one of my good friends, he's one I'm super, I don't want to say jealous of. I admire him because he started soccer at 12 years old and was instantly a monster. He got us, he started playing club, and he got scholarshipped at a very good club about 35 to 40 minutes north of us. Anyway, long story short, some parents on that team saw me play, and they decided they were going to be my scholarship, and they paid it. And I'm glad they did, but I never would have accepted it had I known, if that makes sense.
Why is it so important that you're always there for your players and help find opportunities for them to continue playing?
I'm not going to lie. I've had a bit of even in recent days, a bit of a shock, because that's kind of what JUCO's for. And, I had never understood junior college prior to coming here. In fact, I'm going to be completely honest in saying that as a player, I never would have looked JUCO because I had no education on it. And now that I'm here, it has so many opportunities, but it blows my mind that people tell me, oh, you're doing so good at promoting your players, blah, 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 blah. This is what we should all be doing. Like, what I feel like what I'm doing is, okay, it's good, but it's not enough. There's got to be ways to be better. And I'm not saying that to try and make it sound good on a podcast. I'm saying that because it's true. Like, my roommates here will tell you, I go mental sometimes because I feel like it's not enough. And that's where, that really blows my mind. I just feel like JUCO coaches should be doing what I'm doing. We film our game. The whole point of JUCO is to go somewhere and get somewhere else. So we film our games. We make the girls make their own highlights. We help them edit it after the fact, but we call it investing in yourself. Why should I go make your video for you? If you're not willing to go make your own highlights, how invested are you in going where you want to go? It's not hard to do. You just say, okay, do your highlights. And if they don't do it, guess what? They don't get promoted. They don't get put out there. And if that's not my fault, that's theirs. And that's sort of how we do things. But it just blows my mind that there's not more of that. But I don't know if it has something to do with my age, and I understand social media, and I was very adamant about building my digital footprint since I was 14 years old. People see my Twitter now and my Facebook and all that, and they're like, oh, there's a lot of people that know who you are. Well, that started literally when I was 15. I've done the same thing over time. So if anyone could go on like a Twitter timeline and look, you could literally see, you could go back to, who knows when I joined, 2011, 2012, whenever it might be. And it's been the same. It's very consistent, and it's not, I think I can somewhat put people off sometimes because they're like, oh, he's doing it for, attention. But I've done it since I was 15, and that's just how I am. And sometimes some of the things I put out are reaffirmations for myself. Sometimes, when you see something, you write it down because it impacted you or it caught your attention. And then I have a lot of notes in my phone. And then, if I'm ever having a bad day, I'll go scroll through my notes. And, those are things that will pick you up, and they're things that can pick other people up. And why not put it out there? And then I just think that if you have an opinion, and it's I don't want to say a good opinion, but if you have an opinion and you want to put it out there, why not? And I don't care if people say, oh, you put too much out. I don't care. I don't know how to explain it. I just put things out that I feel I needed at one point or still need that day.
What advice do you give the athletes about finding their next opportunity?
The biggest advice is you're not allowed to say no. So if a coach from a school that you have no interest in calls, you better answer, and you better be respectful, and you better speak to them. And yes, that can be annoying over time, but if we want our dream schools to respond to us, I just think it's good karma for you to respond to a school that you might even be a dream player for. And you don't deserve your dream job, your dream school, your dream anything if you're not willing to speak to those that are not. And I just feel that if you want to go to the University of Florida, you better speak to Columbia State, not because I'm going to be able to get you there, but because you don't deserve the University of Florida if you think you're above something else. And I say that to our players. They don't deserve the University of Florida if they think they're above something else. And that's, I truly believe that. I will speak to absolutely everyone. And it sometimes takes a lot of my time, especially after I'll read an email. I'll respond to every email I can. That's not saying I don't miss an email. That's saying that if they message me again and I see it, I will respond. I just think we have to respect everything in order to get anything.
So you had talked a little bit earlier about when recruiting an athlete, you really look for the culture and their attitude. So are there ever things that you see players do time and time again that either don't help or hurt their chances of being recruited?
Oh, yeah. There's never a specific thing that happens, but there's moments like watching a player at a tournament before. I saw a great player, and I thought, when she was playing with her club team that she was outstanding. And then I went and watched her play high school where the level was not as high. Her teammates aren't as good. And I really saw a different player. She's still the great player that she was, but she wasn't dealing with adversity well. So the problem with highlights and everything is they always show us what's good. They always show us what we want to see, or what they think we want to see. But, I think that going and watching a high school game is a very good way to see how they respond to difficult scenarios. If they're the best player on the field, can they make those around them better? If their teammates make a bad pass, how do they react to it? Do they complain a lot, or do they just go on and get their job done? And then, when you're on recruiting calls, you can tell when people are lying to you, or not lying. You can tell when people are beating around the bush. And it's never easy to talk about yourself, but how you talk about yourself really matters. You can say good things about yourself and not sound cocky. You can say that there's just, I'm not saying I read players right all the time. I just go by feel. So your question's so hard because I don't know what I look for outside of character. When there's talent and there's specific talents, it's just why. I guess my biggest answer, or my biggest question to every recruit is, why should I recruit you? And you're not allowed to answer anything to do with your athletic ability. And it's really hard for a lot of people to answer. We often get, I'm very supportive of my teammates, blah, blah, blah. But, I don't want to say blah, 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 because sometimes they mean it. But at the same time, it's a matter of how do they say it, and can you tell it's sincere? Can you tell it's a scripted answer? And that's, and I don't know. Sometimes I'll interrupt and just say something randomly and see how they react. I just think there's players that will ask the right questions and players that will answer them the right way. And when I say right, it's right to them. Maybe not be what I'm looking for, but it might fit them. And even if it's not what I'm looking for, but I can tell it's authentic, that's still a kid I'll recruit because it's authentic. I think authenticity is the number one key to success. We have to be who we are to succeed.
So you had also talked a little bit about fit and helping a player find a fit even if it isn't on your team. How can a player know if they found that fit?
You just feel it. You just know. Like I tell every player that we speak to, and I will speak to players that I have no chance at getting, like a lot. I do that actually all the time because the one we get is a program changer. And honestly, I feel like if I could take my campus and make it mimic another campus of just a big school that has money and willing to put money into their infrastructure, right? So I feel like if you could make our campus look beautiful and you could slap the label NCAA D1, I think I could get 99% of the players I speak to 100%. I have no doubt, or no, I don't want to say no doubt. I'm very confident of it. And I think that when I'll make that point to recruits, and I'll tell them, like, if we were a D1 or something like that, I feel like you would come. And a lot of times they say yes. And it's a matter of, well, then why, what's holding you back? And I don't know how to properly answer your question outside of I think the approach is very personal, and we try and tell every player to speak to as many coaches as possible, because you get to see more perspectives, and then something's going to stick out to you. Something is going to, here in your heart, you're going to feel it, and in your mind, you're going to feel it. And I tell them, the day you decide to commit somewhere, tell your parents, write it on a piece of paper, and go to bed. And then the next morning, if you're in a good mood, chances are you made a great decision. If you're in a bad mood, chances are you made a bad decision. And the good thing is you didn't commit. You only committed on paper and to your parents, and you can still make a decision.
Why should student athletes consider a 2-year institution?
Well, your average in the U.S. of debt is $24,000 after 2 years for your average college student. That's not athlete, so that's just me saying average college student. So that means that if 4 years, it could turn out on average $48,000 in debt, then hopefully I can make you have $24,000 in debt after 2, or even better. And I think that everyone would say when they go to college, they get better. So then the question is, if you graduate high school and you didn't get the school of your dreams or close to it in terms of level, and you know that everybody gets better, then why would you settle when you can keep the dream alive? And what we find is we can get a lot of very good players that we should not get just because they're competitive and they're willing to bet on themselves. And that is massive. And I think that if you graduate high school with a 4.0, the way college recruiting works with financial aid packages is all a bet. It's betting that athletically, academically, that these players are going to fit in that program. And I think that going to a junior college stacks your deck. I think that they get to see your academics after 2 years. And if your academics are not a 3.0 or higher, there's a very good chance your scholarship offers are going to be very low. But if your academics are above a 3.0, they're going to be your financial aid packages from schools alone are going to be better just because your percentage of likeliness to graduate is higher. And especially at state schools, they get money based on graduation rates. So, if you have 2 years done, then your graduation likeliness is way higher. If you get a 3.5 GPA at a JUCO, when you transfer, you get something called Phi Theta Kappa. That's a massive scholarship in terms of academics that college coaches can stack things for. And I think that specifically at our JUCO, I can't speak for all of them. If you have an offer from one school, I can almost guarantee you'll have the same offer or better 2 years later, and you'll have 15 more options. And I just think that that's where we're very helpful. I just think we can connect you with schools that you normally couldn't have got connected with. And I have no idea how we do it. I just know that if I don't know the coach, I will annoy them until they know who I am and they know who you are.
Could you share with me a few favorite memories from the last year?
Ooh, there's a lot of favorite memories. I would say my absolute favorite one was when we won the conference, and not because we're conference champions and we get to say it and do all this in the social media and in the recruiting process. It always helps to say you're a conference champion, but that's not why. I think that it was cool because I told the players that we were not going to get scored on in the conference tournament and that we were going to win it without getting scored on, and that's what we did. And I think that was cool. I just think little moments, the moment of another one of my favorite moments, oddly enough, is when my player told me I was being negative and that I was basically a hypocrite, for lack of better terms. And I thought that was awesome, actually. Looking back at it, it's like, I am so happy that I've been so transparent that she had the confidence to say that to me. And in front of everybody. She didn't do it on her own. She did it at practice the next day in front of absolutely everyone. And that was cool to me. I actually, looking back at it, really liked that. So, and I think that specific moment is what led to the conference championship, because if I hadn't changed, there's no telling how many more games we would have lost. In fact, I'm almost convinced that it was my fault that we lost the first 4. I take that back. We were never going to win 2 of those 4. We scheduled some teams that were unreal. I just wanted to see how far off we were. But the other 2 games we shouldn't have lost. I 100% agree with that. And it was my fault, and I'm okay with saying that. And I think that I did my part to improve it as we went forward. But those were my favorite moments, yeah.
What are some of the goals for your team in this next year?
And this for the team, the girls, and me, to remember the little steps, to remember the little details. My worry is that, as conference champions, you always want to repeat it, but the aim isn't to be conference champions. The aim should be to be the best we can be, and that we can only do that through the little details. And I just feel that, it's very hard as a coach and as a player to stay on that track, because you get big eyes, you get big dreams, especially in JUCO. Like, players are playing to showcase themselves, and it's really hard to get players to understand that playing together is the way to shine. But also, the recruiting process, it's stressful for coaches, because I have to bring players in, but at the same time I'm trying to get players out, and it literally doubles and triples your workload. So it's remembering why we do what we do, and why we're where we are, and we just gotta stay grounded in the little things. And I mean, we have our cornerstone has always been belief, and it will always be belief. And then you gotta be hardworking on the field and off the field. You've got to be organized on the field and off the field. And you've got to have the best character. There should never be a game we play that, if it's live streamed, someone says that Columbia State team is a dirty team. That Columbia State team is a nasty team. They should go, wow, they conducted themselves with character. And my dream is we can beat a team 10-0, and their players thank us for playing them. Like, that's my dream. I want to be the most dominant team in the country that everybody loves to play, because we will be a class act.
So I have one final question, which I always ask. What do you hope people remember about your impact to soccer and the world?
Man, I have no idea. I hope that they remember the good things. I hope that they don't, in the future, if we lose a national title, I hope that they don't remember that, oh, that's the coach that lost the national title. I hope they remember the things that got us there. So I don't know how to answer that. I don't really hope to be remembered at all, outside of, the people I impact. And if being remembered is a byproduct of the work we're trying to do, then great. But if it's at the expense of having to see and answer phone calls to people being questioning things or whatever all the time, then it's not too fun. I just want to do the best I can do and be remembered for trying to be the best I could be, I guess.
One thing that Colton posted recently this past weekend was about helping 8 players find their next opportunity. That really shows his character and how much he does care about his players. Colton is a very humble and honest coach. He'll help others and give advice whenever needed. So if you ever need him, I encourage you to reach out to him, because he will be very willing. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and until next time, remember to keep the game beautiful.